All right, so late afternoon here in Rockaway above Pacifica. I've only got a limited amount of time to paint before the sun sets. Let me show you what I'm thinking. All right, so here is the scene I'm working with. Not very dramatic at the moment, but I'm hoping as the sun sets, I'll get some nice glare effects on the water and then also maybe some nice colors in the sky as well. I'll be using my usual limited palette and I'm painting on a 16 by 20 inch panel. I'm sketching in burnt sienna and I've just thinned the burnt sienna with some odorless mineral spirits, and I'm using a number 4 natural bristle filbert. The land is the darkest part of the composition, so I'm sketching out these shapes. Also, I don't think the colors and values of these shapes are going to change that much, whereas the sky and the water are going to change considerably. So I'm just working on what I can at the moment, and then hopefully I'll be ready if there are any interesting effects in the sky. For medium, I'm using Gamblin's solvent-free liquid, and I just poured out a little puddle right here. For my dark mixture, I'm using ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, and a bit of burnt sienna, and I am using some of this solvent-free liquid. As I've mentioned before, I like to use medium when I'm painting on a panel. If I'm painting on canvas, I often just thin with mineral spirits because the paint soaks into the canvas and it creates a nice bond with the canvas. But when painting on a panel, it's nice to have some medium in the mix to make sure that you get a nice bond between the paint and the panel. I've been enjoying using this filbert. Filbert is kind of pointy, so it allows me to draw lines and then also turn it on its side to scrub in. There are several challenges when painting sunsets. Number one is it's tough on the eyes. The glare in the water and also just looking at the sun is really difficult. And the other challenge is that the effects are fleeting. Once the sun starts setting, it usually sets really quickly. All right, so there are the land shapes. I'm thinking that I want the sun to be somewhere like here, maybe. Something like that. So using rule of thirds, I'd put it at this top right third here. It is currently maybe up here, but hopefully it's going to set right over here. From memory, it does kind of move in this direction. Here's an update of the scene. The sun is moving in this direction and then also down, obviously. I think it's right there at the moment. I've decided to go with a blue-gray for the distant lands, and then I think this bit of land here is going to be almost black. This is a mixture of ultramarine blue, titanium white, and a touch of burnt sienna. All right, for this bit of land here, I've got a mixture of ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, which is the closest to black I have on my palette. I do still want to keep some transparency in this dark, if possible. I have stopped thinning with the medium, but I'm painting over a wet portion here, and so it is thinning it a bit. All right, so there is a little bit of separation there. I might lighten this distant mountain a bit, but we'll see. All right, I mixed up a warm orange-yellow color here using cadmium yellow medium, titanium white, and some permanent red medium. I've changed my mind about where I want the sun. I think I'm gonna have the sun be a bit lower in the sky and also a little bit more to the left, just because I like the way the glare interacts, or is going to hopefully interact, with these rocks and the island. I also like how the sun lights up the bottom of the clouds, so by having the sun lower, I'll get more of that effect, hopefully. The reason I'm putting this color on now is so that I can gauge how dark I want the surrounding water to be. All right, for the water, I'm going with a light purplish mix. I've used titanium white, ultramarine blue, and a bit of alizarin crimson. And I'm using a number 8 natural bristle flat so I can cover the panel quickly. And I'm back to thinning the paint with mineral spirits and medium, just because I really need to cover the panel quickly. The scene is changing by the minute. As usual, I'll be coming over this thin paint with thicker paint, but the first step is to completely cover the panel, and then I will probably switch over to a smaller brush to finish the painting. Okay, for the sky, starting with a warm gray, and I don't know, I might want to add some alizarin to this, just because the alizarin will help create a feeling of light. This gray is not looking very luminous. But I'm also concerned with values here, because I want to make sure that the area surrounding the sun is dark enough that the sun will look bright. I've added some blue to the mix here because the sky is bluer as it gets higher. All right, I've got sort of an orangish red mix here, working really quickly. And there's sort of a cloud pattern. It's kind of coming down at an angle. And there are bits of light shining through these clouds. As I mentioned, it's changing so quickly that there is really no way to paint what you're seeing, because it's there 1 second and then it's gone. So it's kind of impossible. However, I think the fact that I'm a little bit out of control will hopefully allow me to stumble onto some good effects. Okay, I've got a thick mix here of titanium white and a bit of cadmium yellow medium. I'm putting in the brightest spots in the sky. I can't get any higher value than this mix right here. So I'm going to key the painting to these lights. In other words, I will make the surrounding sky dark enough so that this appears very light. I'm also keeping the paint really thick, because thicker paint equals higher value. It's getting progressively brighter out here, adding some light mixture for the reflection on the water. Clearly I need to darken the surrounding water quite a bit. So I'm looking at the scene briefly and then coming back to the painting, and it seems like the area right at the edge of the light is kind of a warmish gray color, and then it progressively moves towards blue as it goes away from this light here. Let me put some more blue in this area. And then along the base of the land here, it's a little bit darker. It's kind of a dark blue, and the same right here. It's kind of like I guess it's casting a shadow. I think I need to wipe out some of this paint, because as the sun gets lower, there's definitely a shadow here. Going in with some pure ultramarine blue. And it's so bright right here that I can't even look at it, but I'm assuming there's got to be a shadow right there as well. I'm using some ultramarine blue and titanium white for some of the blue areas in the sky. And I'm going with a slightly darker value so that hopefully the sun will stand out. Down along the horizon, the color of the sky is quite warm, making the blue bits of sky darker as I go higher. All right, so it's gotten to the point where I can barely look at the sunset. It's too bright. All right, so here's what I finished up with. This painting took about an hour and a half to complete. It was finished on site. My primary goal with this painting was to create a convincing feeling of light. And in order to do that, I played warm against cool and then light against dark. An example of warm and cool would be, obviously this whole area in here is warm, and then it's playing off the cool of the sky. So you've got these warm yellows and oranges, and then the cool blue. There's not a huge value shift here, but the temperature shift does help to create a feeling of light. Down in the water here, you've got both value and temperature. So you've got the warm glare and then the cool water, but there's also a value shift as well. This is really high value, and then it gets progressively darker. Another thing I did to create a feeling of light in this painting was to use a lot of paint. Sunsets are obviously challenging. The scene changes every minute, and it's very difficult to see the scene because there's so much glare and so much light. But I do think it's a worthwhile challenge. It gives you an opportunity to play around with color, and then also an opportunity to experiment with creating a feeling of light. If you guys have been watching the channel for a while, you may have noticed that I used liquid in the past as my medium, and then I started experimenting with some other mediums. But lately what I've been doing is using a little bit of medium for the scrub in portion. If I'm painting on a panel, if I'm painting on a canvas, I'll just thin the first layer of paint with odorless mineral spirits. And then after I've done the scrub in or the block in, then I just switch over to paint straight out of the tube as far as the thickness goes. It's a little bit more difficult to work quickly with thicker paint, but I'm enjoying the texture I'm getting, and then also the additional saturation that I'm getting from the thicker paint. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you'd like to see some extra videos and help support the channel, there's a Patreon link down below. I've got a bunch of extra videos and materials list, so check it out. Also, if you'd like to purchase one of my paintings, I'll put a link to Studio Gallery down below as well, and so you can see the inventory if you want. Other than that, stay creative. I'll see you guys in the next video.